Hi, everybody. Al Bernstein here with another edition of our Big Time Boxing Show. And on this one, we are going to speak to a fighter who was involved in one of the best fights of this year. And she will have a chance to add to that when she does a rematch of her fight with Kay Scott on December 20th. Olivia Curry is going to be our guest, and she fought Kay Scott on September 19th at the Fox Theater in Detroit, and they produced one of the best fights of 2025. It was very, very exciting. It ended up being a draw, which prompted the rematch that will happen on December 20th when, again, the WBC Middleweight Championship will be on the line. So please, I'm going to help me welcome one of the participants in that great fight, Olivia Curry. Olivia, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am good. Thanks for taking the time to do this. You and Kay Scott was a match that everybody looked forward to. I think everybody thought this is going to be a fascinating fight between two of the top middleweights in the world. And what happened, though, I think exceeded everyone's expectations. It was an amazing fight in which you guys battled for you battled for 10 rounds and had an amazing fight. And one of the things that made it such a good fight was that Kay Scott fought a different fight than probably you and your trainer Trinidad Garcia or any of us thought she would fight. She got into the trenches with you, and that made it a fascinating fight, didn't it?
It did. I am happy to hear that it was an entertaining fight. I think win, lose or draw, obviously we always want to win, but another goal of mine is always to put on a good show. It's entertainment at the end of the day. So I'm really glad we could shine a little bit of light on the female middleweight division. And you're right. I mean, I think all credit to Kay Scott in that first fight. She did pull out something that we didn't know she had, which is just digging down deep and kind of banging with me. And we thought she was going to box, and she, I think both probably her team trained for a dogfight, and then also I think my style at a certain point sort of makes other people get sucked into that as well. So all in all, she showed us something that we didn't know she had, but the good thing is we get to do it again, and now I know. So she can't surprise me again.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's intriguing what you're saying because this is the ultimate case where you can learn something from a first fight because you were seeing something that a fighter had not really done before. Now, you are very good at being an aggressive, come forward fighter, and you have that style. You and your trainer have honed that very, very well, and you're really adept at getting inside and working the body and working the head. So, for this rematch, is there what adjustments are you going to make based on the fact that she did what she did, or is it just a matter of you doing more with what you already have seen?
Well, I think there's two things to consider. Obviously, we're working on some specific things that, I won't necessarily go into
No,
detail
you
with.
don't have to reveal your plans. Yeah,
But I do think what I will say is that we are preparing for either version of her. We're
yeah,
preparing
I
for
got
the
you.
version of her that we just saw, and we're
Yeah,
also preparing for the version of her that we've seen on tape before that we had kind of thought she
right.
was gonna do, which is more of a boxing style, move around kind of style. And so I think we'll be prepared for it to go either way. And then to your second point, I think it was a very close fight. Even to me, at the end of the fight, it really felt like, wow, I don't know, it just kept going back and forth. And so I think what I'm taking from that is I just need to be like 10% better
Hmm. Right,
than her in order to secure this victory. And so we're aiming for 50% better, but if I just
right.
make a few small adjustments, I think we can get it done.
Yeah, and you are right. Of course, it was a give and take battle that that went back and forth. Interesting for you that you've had two draws in a row now. You had a draw with Melody Propovec before that, and then you ended up with the draw with Kay Scott. Probably frustrating
Yeah.
because you're in close fights and it ends up being a draw. It's probably a frustrating endeavor when that happens.
It's very frustrating. Yeah, it's a really dissatisfying feeling to get a draw. I think the only thing that made me feel better about this past fight was, there are other times if you lose, you draw, when you think, man, I could have done more.
Yeah,
I didn't fight my
right.
best fight. This past fight, we can always do more, but it was a great fight, and I
Yeah,
felt like I really poured my heart out into the ring and fought hard. And so all I can do now is try to improve upon the, mistakes I made, or, get to that next level up
yeah.
and go from there. But obviously, we're coming in to win this time.
Sure, absolutely. Now, your entrance into boxing was interesting because you were studying at Northwestern and you were studying film at Northwestern, and then you took some Muay Thai classes, and you didn't think that was going to lead you to boxing, but it did. It led you to an amateur boxing career in Chicago. How did that happen?
Yeah, it was just one of those things where I had no aspirations as a child to become a boxer. I wasn't even really an athlete. I was always kind of a nerdy kid. My dad sort of made me do some sports, but it wasn't my calling. And so I started taking these classes just to challenge myself, just, hey, I want to get in shape. I've been at school kind of partying a little bit, or having trouble sleeping, and like this exercise outlet is helping.
Yeah,
That's how it started, but I was lucky that in Chicago I met some people who really knew what they were doing, first in the Muay Thai world, and then later, I kind of switched over eventually to boxing. Was going down to another gym in Chicago called Sam Colonna's.
yeah,
Sam is a very well-known, trainer in Chicago, and then eventually for my pro career, I'd met Trinidad and our assistant coach Lalo, who still are, my team today, while I was first starting to do some of these national USA boxing tournaments. And I didn't really know what the path was to like make the Olympic team or try to like do anything in boxing. I just kept going step after step and thinking, okay, well, I mean, I don't really feel like I'm done yet. I feel like there's still a lot more to learn. So I guess I'll
mhm.
take this next leap and do this next thing. And that attitude kind of got me all the way to where I am today.
And then along the way in Chicago, and you mentioned Sam Colonna, who's a legendary figure in Chicago boxing, and I'm from Chicago, so many years ago I did what you did, except I didn't do it in the Golden Gloves. I did it with Park District Boxing, which back in Chicago and back in those days was a big deal. But uh, another name that is legendary in the women's side has had a role with you, Jessica McCaskill, who is a fantastic many-time women's champion who has had a Hall of Fame career. She will certainly be in the Women's Boxing Hall of Fame and the International Boxing Hall of Fame at some point in the future. She kind of became a mentor to you, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. And she I think similarly in a certain way, like didn't start super young in boxing, right? She came to it a little bit later in life, and it was cool to see her as an example of someone from Chicago who is able to
Yeah,
kind of just off of like guts and grit and hard work ethic alone propel herself to that next level. So, we haven't been working as much with her in this camp. It's also like I know she's been training she's has other endeavors, other professional and athletic endeavors going on, but we also, for sparring and stuff, we need that height for Kay Scott, so we've been
yeah,
focusing more on some of
right.
these amateur guys who are a little taller for my sparring sessions lately. But yeah, all credit to Jessica. It's cool to have seen her get to the highest levels in the sport, and now I hope that I can be, that it's not a one-off for Chicago, and we can bring more attention to Chicago women's boxing by getting these belts.
Now, because you started a little bit later, and you haven't had, you have plenty left in the gas tank. How long do you see your boxing career going? Obviously, you're working now. I should tell people as a production editor and director and writer of films and other video content. So you have a great job. Um, how long do you think your boxing career? What do you foresee it being?
That's a tough one. I've been thinking about this question a lot, and I think to a certain degree it depends on how this fight goes, how
Mhm.
the next few months go. I think that's going to determine what path I take. And I am in my mid 30s now, so I'm although I feel like I still have gas in the tank and I'm just now reaching sort of the heights of
Mhm.
my professional career, I still have things to learn, lots of things to learn in boxing, but I also just out of age and time alone, pretty
Sure.
soon I think it's going to be time to transition into other things. But I'm
Yeah.
excited that I'm signed under Salida Promotions right now, and we have a multi-fight deal, and I intend to see that out and
Yeah.
work with them to figure out what kind of career path makes the most sense. Hopefully, I mean, if nothing else, I think I've shown in the last fight, and I will show in this next one, that I'm always going to be an entertaining ticket, and I'm always going to be a challenge for anyone at the world level. So that means that, if the middleweight weight class for women kind of gets rolling this year, I'll be there and I'll be ready to fight anyone.
Well, the women's upper weight divisions, you made this point before your last fight. The depth in the upper weight divisions has been slowly getting better. The fact that there aren't as many women gives you a chance to get to title matches quicker. But as you pointed out, it also puts pressure on you to be a better fighter early in your career. And you are only, what, 10, 11 fights into your pro career. And here you are, if having another world championship fight. This division now is providing some opportunities for you, and maybe, as you say, through this deal with Salida Promotions, it'll provide you with some other good fights, no matter what happens on December 20th.
I hope so, and I think it's all sort of coming together for the women these days too. I think
Yeah,
we're going to continue to see boxing grow, and I'm really grateful for both Salida Promotions and Mark Taffet and everyone on there
yeah,
who's kind of helped make these fights possible because they didn't have to, right? But they see the
right.
value in what K Scott and I can bring, and even I mean, male boxers like Tony Harrison, who is going to be on this card, who's
Yeah.
sharing the spotlight with us. I don't take that for granted. I think we need people to step up and kind of all we need is a chance to show what we can do. And then what you'll see is a fight that's as entertaining as any male boxing match. It's nonstop action, especially with the 2-minute rounds.
Well, the fight that you had with K. Scott, I said it was one of the best fights of the year, and it in fact was. It was certainly one of the top two or three I've announced in 2025, and
Thank
I've done a lot of good fights this past year. So it was excellent. It was well fought. It was exciting, and a nail biter. So you can't ask for more than that. And um, and so once you get, assuming you win the title, which I know you're going to want to do, um, is there anybody now you could unify the title? That's one possibility. What would you look for if you won this fight on December 20th?
Yeah, so obviously what everyone wants is, if you get a belt, two belts, you want more belts. So the ultimate goal would be to become undisputed champion. And right now, Desley Robinson over at MVP has the other two belts. Another big, tall Australian woman,
Yeah,
but I've
exactly.
already taken on one of those, so I'm ready to take on the other one if need be. There's
Well,
also
that's your reward. You beat one big tall Australian woman, you get another. That's
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing over there. They're, for some reason, they're all 6 feet tall. But there's also, speaking of tall women, there's Tam Tebow over at MVP, who I know
yeah,
is kind of their next big sort of star over there at
yeah.
middleweight. But I'm just open to any opportunities. But I
Hmm.
think The number one thing that I want is sort of the glory of more belts. And then the number two is to just be matched up with some of the best. I always told my trainers, like, why am I doing this? It's not only to push myself and for the opportunities, professionally that it creates, but it's also like I want to fight the best. I don't mind having losses on my record if it's to some of the best in the world.
Yeah.
I think that's like what boxing brings out. Why people love this sport is it takes bravery to get in there with someone who
Yes,
can knock
indeed.
your head off and go toe to toe,
Yeah.
and that's all I want to do.
Well, and you stepped up to 168 even to face Shadeja Green, a big, strong puncher at 168, and you ended up losing a decision. But that fight was a great effort on your part and experience that made you better. And so on December 20th, you'll be battling with Kay Scott in what is a highly anticipated matchup. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me, and I can't wait to be in Detroit and call that boxing match.
I'll see you there. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you very much, Olivia. So that's Olivia Curry, who, as I said, will be battling Kay Scott on December 20th for the middleweight championship in the women's ranks. And everyone is excited about that matchup. And it's part of, as what Olivia pointed out, is a renaissance in the upper weight divisions in women's boxing that continues and continues to produce great fights. We'll see you next time.